Hey trainers, and welcome to another TogeTips Pokemon Go review. Today we're going to talk about the recent Stuffal Community Day event. As usual with these kinds of discussions, I'm joined by a longtime friend of the channel. Good morning, Chris.
Hey there, nice to be here.
Yeah, welcome. So this was a pretty exciting, yet kind of controversial Community Day. As many of you know, this month marked the return of the 3-hour Calm Day window. Outside of the Bulbasaur and Mudkip events that we saw earlier this year, we haven't had one of these for the mainline Community Days since the pandemic started. And then on top of that, we had our first ever, and I mean ever, first Pokemon debut through Community Day. So it was a pretty wild combo to say the least.
Yeah, for sure. It was something that I was really surprised about.
Yeah, I think we all were. So before we chat about our Calm Day experience, I thought it would be beneficial for each of us to talk about our initial thoughts when Stuffal Community Day was first announced. And between the two of us, I know that you saw the event details first, so why don't you start things off?
So yeah, I saw it right when the news dropped. It was at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I remember I was looking for the Community Day announcement. I knew it would be coming that day or one of those days back in March. And I saw that it was Stuffal, and I was super surprised because I was expecting another Pokemon within a Lowland form, or maybe Pikipek, something tied to the Alola region, but not something brand new. So when I saw Stuffal, I was super excited. And then I started reading it, and there were a lot of cool parts to it. Drain Punch being a brand new move that Beware would get. That was really exciting. And even though Stuffal is a 400 candy evolution, which I saw in the post, I was still excited. And then one of the things that I read that was a big red flag, of course, was the 3-hour Community Day window. That was something that really threw me off, and I saw that they were testing this out. And I didn't really agree with it. The 6-hour Community Day has been something that allows for a lot more flexibility in playing. And so when I first saw that they were changing it to 3, I was a little scared, especially with a brand new Pokemon. It's not like you could have candies stored up beforehand if you couldn't play. This was your time to get your candies for Stuffal and to evolve it to get that new move. So overall, I was a little shocked by it.
Yeah, I totally get that. And you know, it's crazy when you texted me about it, I was like, whoa, we're getting a brand new Pokemon, like, this is crazy. And after that, I saw the bonuses we were getting, and I thought to myself that this was going to be one of the best Calm Days we've ever had. It was then that I went to text you about it, and I saw your message about the reduced hours, and you know, that's kind of when it sank in about why they were doing all this extra stuff. So almost immediately, there were two things that came to my mind with this change. Obviously, it would affect trainers' flexibility to play this event if they had other commitments that day. But at the same time, this would have further impact the accessibility to play this event, considering we had the major change to incense last month. So this would just be another obstacle for trainers who have mobility or other related disabilities. And of course, when I went onto Twitter, you can imagine that my entire page was filled up with frustrated posts regarding these two factors. So it was quite clear from the get-go that a lot of people weren't happy with this change. And it was also worth noting that Niantic didn't confirm whether Stuffal was going to be a rare or common spawn once Community Day came to a close. And I'm sure this added a lot of anxiety to people who weren't sure if they could participate in the event. Now, at the time we're recording this, we've seen a decent number of Stuffal in the wild, not to the levels of, say, like Pidgey or Rattata though, but it looks like it's leaning towards being a more common Pokemon. Still though, it would have been nice to have just a little heads up from Niantic before the event. There's been some Calm Days like Mudkip and Piplup where once the event came to an end, these Pokemon were pretty much non-existent outside of events or rainy weather.
Yeah, that's a pretty fair point. I've also seen a fair amount of Stuffal in the wild, so I'm hoping it stays that way even after the season concludes.
Yeah, absolutely. So next up, I wanted to talk a little bit about the returning 3-hour window. As Niantic described in last month's blog, one of the big factors encouraging this change was the results of the recent Bulbasaur Calm Day Classic in January. As you know, this was a pretty big deal because Bulbasaur is a pretty popular Pokemon, plus having Frenzy Plant again for Venusaur has a lot of use to it, both for regular trainers and those who are just starting out. So it was cool having this fan favorite Pokemon and this cool move for the month of March. So for me personally, I've never really been a fan of these 3-hour windows, And the reason for that is because between 2018 and 2019, I had a very volatile work schedule, plus I always worked on Saturdays. So in the event that a calm day fell on that day of the week, there was almost a 99% chance that I was going to miss it, which, wasn't really the end of the world, but it was just a bit of a bummer working in a Pokemon Go hotspot and having to miss the whole event.
Yeah, I was in a very similar sort of way. Those first 2 years, I had school commitments at my local college, and there were many days on Saturdays, community days specifically, where I was just busy during that time, that 2 to 5 time period, where I just couldn't play, or I could only pick up a few that were near me during that time. It was really a toss-up. I remember missing Charmander Community Day, and I believe a few others throughout the middle of the years in 2018 and 2019. So the 6-hour community day change in 2020 was really big, and it really helped me kind of be able to catch more Pokemon during that time period, even if I was a bit busy still.
It was really just difficult finding time to do it since there was such a short window. But along with that, I also felt that these events were kind of short. Like during the times when I could play, I'd see a lot of the community out and about. But once that 5 o'clock end time hit, the whole area just seemed to clear out. So, it just seems like people would grind for the 3 hours for the event, get their shinies, evolve them, and then peace out. But then when we had the December calm days that lasted all day, not only would I see more trainers out and about, but there would also be various community groups holding meetups to meet up with other trainers, evolve Pokemon. Some of them were handing out pins and whatnot, so there were lots of ways to interact with other members of the community, and it just felt like a lot more fun, like a lot more engaging. Now, when it came to the Bulbasaur Calm Day, I didn't really have a problem with it being only 3 hours. Basically, it was just a rerun of the 2018 event, so anyone that was either new or missed it the first time around would have a shot at it. But at the same time, it wasn't overblown into a 6-hour event. Plus, considering, it was an additional Calm Day event, and we just had Stuffal Calm Day the week prior, it really worked out just being 3 hours. It didn't feel like you were, just overexpanding yourself, just going all out to burn out playing Pokemon.
Yeah, for me and my Bulbasaur Community Day, I remember it was rainy weather in my area, so I wasn't planning to go out and play that much outside because the weather was too poor. So I also played on incense for most of the day, and it was pretty good. With the boosted incense rate, I was able to actually catch a decent amount of them, get a few shinies, some good ones with PvP IVs. So it let me play, even if it was a 3-hour window.
So it sounds like for both of us, the increased incense spawns really helped out a lot. And I'm sure, there were a lot of other people in the same boat that really appreciated it as well.
For sure.
So after this event, we had Hoppip Community Day in February, and this was going to be our last Calm Day with the increased incense. After that, we had Sandshrew Calm Day for March, which was the first to have the lowered rates for stationary play. But then this past Calm Day had both the nerfed incense and the reduced time, so it was just kind of a double negative there.
Yeah, for sure. There were a few friends that I had who were in different areas, and some of them had commitments that they had already planned, and it being 3 hours in the afternoon, they were only able to play just a little bit. I remember one of them did try to use incense, and of course they had that similar issue where they're only getting about 18 per incense. And so they're not really catching that many, and they might have had a few around them, but I remember them saying that they didn't get any shinies throughout the whole event. So stuff like that, just hearing that is really disappointing.
Yeah, that's a good example. So up to this point, we've talked about everything prior to Stuffal Com Day. Now let's transition into what we actually thought about the event now that we both got to experience it. So I think I'll start with how my event went. Basically, to start things off, I had the perfect setup of weather conditions. It was warm, it was high 70s, there was no rain in the forecast. Basically just had to pack up some sunscreen and a couple water bottles, and the rest of the event was awesome. I went out to one of my local grind spots, and surprisingly, I saw a lot of people out playing Pokemon as well. And it was probably the most people I've seen out since Gibble Day almost a year ago. So first I met up with this one guy that I met during the raid hours in the fall, and we did some catching of stuff. We did a bunch of Stuffle catches before he had to go meet up with one of his friends to do a special trade. After that, I hung out with another friend from Raid Hour who was playing Pokemon Go with his kids, and we just did some circles around the pond in our area, before we're meeting up with some other people to do some more special trades that they had been coordinating. So, it was nice having people to hang out with when it's usually dry and I'm playing by myself. The only time I see a lot of people out is either during Go Fest or like the Kanto tour that we had last year. Another noticeable difference I saw from the 6 to 3 hour window was that by the end of it, I wasn't nearly as exhausted as I was than playing the 6 hour events. And a big part of that was because I was only grinding for half the time, so that's not really too bad.
Yeah, for sure. I know for me, when there was a community day that was a good one, I would usually grind for a few hours, off and on. Sometimes it would be about 3 hours total, but the nice thing was that I could do it in different periods of time. I remember in the past, Gibble, for example, last June, you and I played together, and there was a lot of grinding, and we were definitely really tired. But we did have the flexibility to take breaks. But regardless, I do think we were really tired because we played for the vast majority of the event.
Right, exactly. And with those 6 hour events, you just want to grind the whole time, especially if it's a really good Pokemon like Gibble, because you just want to be out there grinding and grinding so you can get as much candy and shinies as you can before the event concludes. So one of the things I did while I was out was I asked a bunch of the other people I was with how they felt about the 3 hour calm day. And for most of them, I got the same answer. And while they did want the flexibility for those who couldn't play and they felt bad for those who couldn't play, they were completely fine with the 3 hours, and some preferred the 3 hour window compared to the 6 hours. It wasn't as taxing on their day, so they could go out, play Pokemon for a few hours, and then, go on with their day. There were also some of them, like me, who were very happy to see more trainers out playing the 3 hour event than going out for the 6 hour event and not seeing anyone. So that was pretty much my Stuffal Com day in a nutshell. Now, Chris, why don't you tell us about your Stuffal Com day experience?
Sure, yeah. So, like yours, I had really nice weather. It was pretty sunny, a little hot, but nothing too bad. It was kind of the end of the spring, mid-spring, so nothing too bad. And then in terms of turnout for it, I played at my local college campus, and there's normally a pretty decent turnout for community days. It's pretty big, so there might be people at all parts of the campus, so you might not see people at all times. But I do remember a few weeks ago when we had Mudkip Community Day, there was actually a pretty solid turnout for that because there were people hunting hundos and Mudkip with PvP IVs that people were calling out in our local Discord. So it was really cool trying to see that, or seeing all those trainers on that day. And so this community day, I was expecting something pretty similar, especially with a brand new Pokemon. And it was pretty similar. I definitely saw a fair amount of people that turned out for it. I would actually say slightly less than Mudkip Day, which kind of surprised me because it was a brand new Pokemon, brand new shiny. But that's not to say I didn't see a lot of people out, which I did, just slightly less than the other community day this month. But it was still nice to see people out playing in the nice weather and such. And it was also nice because it was only 3 hours, like you said, just because it didn't take up the entire day of grinding. But at the same time, I will say I also didn't even play the full 3 hours super hard. I played about 2 hours walking around campus with people and catching Stuffle. But about the last hour is about 4 o'clock. I decided to play a little more passively. I sat down in an outer area where it was kind of shady, threw a lure down, and just kind of caught Pokemon there and charged my phone up. So I definitely didn't really play that hard that whole community day. But overall, I would definitely say I did enjoy it. Beware might not be the most exciting PvP edition or anything, but it was a new shiny, and it was nice to play, and definitely nice to see some people out.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, so far we've talked about our initial thoughts for Stuffal Com Day. We talked about our experience during the event. Now let's talk about our post thoughts and where we think Community Day should go from here should they decide to, continue with the 3 hour calm days as a permanent change. So in terms of these 3 hour calm days, if they're going to be testing these, I think they need to have a bit more of a controlled experiment per se. I think debuting a brand new Pokemon and a 400 candy Pokemon for that wasn't exactly the best choice for the first 3 hour mainline calm day. Like we were talking about with the whole grinding thing, like it's 400 candy to get. That's a lot of candy. And, if you can't play the event or you miss part of the event and you don't hit it, then you're kind of out of luck. Because like we said, we don't know how rare common Stuffle's going to be after Community Day. So one of the ideas I had for this kind of event is to either have a Pokemon that has a shiny release that people could have a lot of candy for, or choose a Pokemon that requires less candy to evolve. Obviously you have the 1 stages that only go for 50 candy, or the 3 stage that's like 125. That's just about 25% less candy than Beware. So, everyone could either have a shot for it if it's a new Pokemon and they need the candy, or if they have the candy, they just catch a few and then they can evolve them and, life is good.
Yeah, for sure. I think that is a really good idea. The fact that they were testing this out on a brand new Pokemon, and I definitely saw a lot of heavy advertisements on YouTube where they were really trying to push people to get out there. It didn't really feel like a test as more something where they're really trying to push a 3-hour calm day and have people play it no matter what. So I wasn't the hugest fan of that. So I agree with you. I think doing a Pokemon that costs less candy, something that's maybe a little older, would really help test, is it the 3-hour time frame that really gets people out there, or is it something else? In this case, I do think it was more of it being a new Pokemon, a new exciting one with a new shiny. I think that's what got people out there, not it being 3 hours. For me, I think something that would be a really good solution would be keeping the 6-hour community day to give extra flexibility, especially if someone can only play, in the morning or only in the afternoon, but keeping 3 hours of those with really good bonuses. So if I were to redo Beware Community Day, we could have a 6-hour version, but maybe the 2 to 5 hours is where the best bonuses would be. Maybe that's where you would get the double catch candy and the increased XL. And maybe they could even add some more bonuses like, egg hatch distance or extra Stardust, that sort of thing.
Yeah, honestly, that's another great idea they could do. You have that 3-hour window that I think a lot of your hardcore players, a lot of your, a large part of the community would go out and play that. But then it also gives people who have other commitments or, just don't want to go out for the whole event, they can pick and choose, when they want to play. And it works for them too. So really it keeps it open for everybody that wants to play.
Absolutely. There was one really cool bonus that I also had thought about. Back with Hoppip Community Day, there was something where they had Skiploom spawning in park areas, and that's a place that trainers would definitely go to meet up more than, someone's backyard or something, or someone's street where they could play alone. True. So something cool they could do is keep doing that sort of thing with future community days, but I think they could also take it a step further in having the final evolutions of the Pokemon spawning in parks, and maybe even letting them be shiny eligible. If they did this for Beware Community Day, I think it'd be really exciting if they had a park and someone sees a Beware on the radar, and they could call to all the people they know that they're playing with and say, there's a Beware over there, and maybe it could be shiny for some people. And that would be a really exciting experience, and not only promote people going to the parks, but definitely encourage group play a lot more.
Yeah, that's true. Honestly, that was a pretty cool feature and would definitely be an exciting feature should Niantic decide to implement it. Of course, I don't see them doing it for all the community days. Could you imagine if Gibble had Gabite spawning? I don't know about you, but I think that'd be pretty OP. Though I definitely think that the starter Pokemon would be great examples to have their second forms in the wild. They could easily do that with, some of these events as well, if they want to do that for other community days. Gosh, tongue-tied there.
But yeah, I think that would be a really, really cool feature to add. And one more feature that I think could be really improve these community days without really restricting things is just adding more in-person meetup events. I know Niantic really touted a really big Stuffal kind of event thing where they had a lot of meetup events throughout the world, where Niantic would host these big events that people could attend and play with other trainers. And I know they also had some merch giveaways, which was really cool. And I definitely think they should keep doing that because it really gets people together if they want to attend and there's one near their area, especially if they have some extra little bonuses in those areas. I know GoFest this summer is going to have some extra bonuses and extra stuff on those things. So why not embrace that a little more with the community days?
Yeah, that's a really great point. It seems like Niantic is doing everything they can to push for these live events, and they're really trying to get people back out there together. And to expand on that, I actually had an idea they could do for live events that might actually benefit smaller communities. So essentially what Niantic could do is have a system where smaller communities or their community leaders could request to hold live events in their local towns or cities. And then they could have a voting system where trainers vote for a specific area, and the one that gets the most votes would be able to host one of those live events and have some of the special features in it. Obviously, this wouldn't be as big as the areas they chose for Stuffle Day, but I think this would be a great help in either growing or, even establishing new Pokemon Go communities.
Yeah, I think that would be really cool. It would really help, especially areas that usually don't get these big sort of events. For America, it's usually the Californias, the New Yorks, the Floridas. But it could definitely increase some community engagement in some of those smaller areas that are still very active in Pokemon Go. I know my area would love to have a sort of meetup like that. So I would absolutely be in favor of that sort of new feature.
Yeah, it would definitely have a lot of potential. Like, I could see a lot of new players coming out to these events, which could eventually lead them to travel to the larger events. But it would just be a great overall experience for both new and veteran players.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that pretty much wraps up our discussion for Stuffal Com Day. We talked about our initial thoughts and some of the challenges that came with this update. We talked about the Community Day experience and how it compared to other Com Days, and then we offered some ideas of where Com Day could go from here. Of course, by now, we know that the next Com Day is going to be a Lowland Geodude on May 21st. Though there's going to be a bit of a kicker with this event. Instead of running from the 2 to 5 time like Stuffle did, this one's going to be running from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. local time. So I guess they're testing out the 3-hour windows for both parts of the whole 6-hour event to see when more people would play it. So, I think once that event comes to an end, Niantic is going to provide an update with what they're going to do from there. But Chris, before we end for the day, do you have any final thoughts about this returning Com Day experience?
Yeah, I think overall it was, for me, a pretty fun event. I got to see people that, I hadn't seen in a while, got to play with a lot of trainers, and I saw some out. And getting a new Pokemon was definitely very exciting, especially a new shiny. So overall, I liked it, and that I was able to play it for those 3 hours, and so I was perfectly fine with those times for that day myself, but that was also because I was able to play it. As we talked about, there's a lot of flexibility in letting it be 6 hours, and I knew a fair amount of people who couldn't play that much during the community day, or very little, if at all. And so I think even though 3 hours was fine for me, but overall, I think 6 hours is better for the community at large for Pokemon Go. More people being able to play, I think, is very important. And I do respect Niantic wanting to get people together. And so that's kind of the reason that they did a smaller period of time. And while I had no problem with that, I think just building flexibility and letting more people play is far more important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit all the major points right there. This was a solid event overall. It was really cool getting a new Pokemon too, albeit the candy requirement was a bit much. Now, I know this discussion was about Stuffal Com Day last month, but I wanted to take some time to briefly talk about this month's Community Day. We got the info a couple days after Stuffle that the next Com Day would feature a Lowland Geodude. And like Stuffle Day, we're seeing a lot of those increased bonuses like the double catch candy, the chances of getting XL candy, the extra special trade, and just a whole bunch of stuff. But at the same time, the window for this event is going to be the opposite of the 2 to 5, where it's going to run from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. local time.
Yeah, so that was really, really surprising to me. Not only because it's been only 2 days at the time of this recording since Stuffle Day, so you don't really get the idea that they've thought about this very much in regard to community feedback and, what people really thought about it. But also the fact that they are doing a 3-hour community day at a different time, I don't think doing an 11 to 2 community day as opposed to 2 to 5 is inherently a bad thing. But the fact that they had no communication prior to this, that they were going to do an earlier community day, it's not a very good look for Niantic, in my opinion. And I also think the fact that they didn't even say anything in their community day blog post is also kind of telling that they didn't really think much of it. It seemed like it was a big change, and I could even see some people who might have assumed that May Community Day would be the same time as Stuffal, be 3 hours and be 2 to 5. They might have scheduled their day around that. Maybe they had work and they wanted to ask for some time off or something. But just the fact that they, without any warning, made it 11 to 2 this time, it's a little, I don't know how I feel about it, truthfully.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely came to a shock to me as well. And, if this was the plan that they were going to go with all this time, I wish they would have put out a separate blog about it, being like, hey, we're going to try to go back to the 3-hour comm day windows, and we want to see when more people are going to play. So April's going to run from 2 to 5 p.m., and May is going to run from 11 to 2. I think that way you give the info enough time to get around so there's no miscommunications. And, especially with the May comm day, like you said, someone could set the time to play from 2 to 5, get to their hunting spot, and find out that, they missed the whole event. So that would really be a bummer.
Yeah, absolutely. It was kind of funny because I actually saw on social media a few people on Stuffal Day asking, where are all the Stuffal? And it turns out they were just 3 hours early because it wasn't starting at the normal 11 a.m. It was starting at 2. So they were just a little too early, and they didn't get the memo that it was only 3 hours, now 2 to 5. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of trainers who have that same sort of thing, only it would be a whole lot worse to realize that you missed the whole community day rather than you're early. So the fact that they didn't have any sort of notice for that, and it's just kind of scary to see that there might be a lot of people missing this upcoming community day just because of Niantic's communication or lack thereof.
Right, exactly. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see in a couple weeks.
Yeah, it'll be interesting for sure. We'll both be wondering to see exactly what happens with Geodude Community Day.
Yeah, absolutely. So guys, that brings us to the end of our Pokemon Go Community Day discussion. And now we want to know about your thoughts and experience with the recent Comm Day. So be sure to let us know down in the comments. We just ask that you keep your comments constructive and respectful, because we are a community after all, so we're here to build each other up, not tear each other down. And also, if you enjoyed our discussion, then consider giving this video a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. We have some really exciting stuff coming up, including an analysis for a brand new Pokemon coming to Go, a speculation regarding the next Pokemon Go season, and even a perfecting Pokemon to send off the season of Alola. Chris, as always, thanks so much for being on today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, as always.
Yeah, anytime. So until next... You know what? Why don't you close this out today, Chris?
Sure thing. So until next time, thank you all so much for watching. We hope you have a great day, and we'll see you all in the next video. Take care.